Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. How are you doing today? It's in the bag. Brad, what's up, man?
Hey man, doing well. Just want to start the episode by if anyone's listening out there that got affected by all this weather from last week, hearts, prayers out to you guys. Crazy stuff happening. I know one of our Hyzer Club members, Addison, has shared some things. I've been working with the USDGC crew, and they're kind of on the outskirts of where the damage was really. And I know they're having a hard time getting that course put back together and water. And there's a lot of people without houses and power and everything. So if you somehow are getting on in the bag with all this crazy life stuff happening, we appreciate you. We love you. It's going to be okay. And, hope everything and everyone is safe most of all.
Yeah, I think about, I saw a post yesterday that kind of compared the wind and just like the statistics of the storm to Hurricane Katrina. And
Wow, yeah.
How everyone's talking about man, I mean, this is crazy, but Hurricane Katrina was the biggest one that came in our life. And in almost every category, Helene is more devastating, more damage than Katrina. So
right.
It's crazy. I feel like coming that far inland, how do you prepare?
Yeah, right. I think that's the biggest thing is those areas are not prepared for that type of storm because it doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
So hearts, prayers out to all you folks, any of your family, any people you know. So hopefully all are doing well. But all we can do is keep pressing on, and if in the bag is your thing and giving you some happiness, hope it does that for you today. But hey, speaking of happiness, Robbie, I'm going to be very happy to talk through this bag. Very interesting episode today and some fun discs to talk through today.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a fun one. I feel like I'm going to say this before we dive into the bag because and we're going to, we'll put a word out to Silas to put the chart on there. We see you in the comments.
Yep.
We hear you. We see you. So don't worry. The word is going out for getting the chart back up there. We appreciate for our visual audience, for those who are on YouTube, they like having the bag up front to help follow the discussion. The temptation here, Brad, is going to be that he has 11 discs in his bag. So we're going to be we can really dive in on each of them. So we got to keep ourselves focused and dialed here.
We got to focus in here today.
So looking forward to it, but let's go ahead and bring Zeke in. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. First time to the podcast, Mr. Zeke Miller. How you doing today, sir?
I'm good. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great, man. Glad to have you on. And what part of the world are you coming to us from today?
So I'm in Lewiston, Idaho right now, going to college here, and then my hometown is Spokane, Washington.
Okay. All right. West Coast.
West Coast strong. This man joining us at the wee hours of the morning, so we appreciate it, Zeke. Anytime. I laugh because I think about our friend Steven on Debate Night, another Foundation podcast for those who aren't familiar. And Steven's a West Coaster, and so we called it Debate Night because originally it was Hunter and Brody debating at night. Makes sense, right?
Right.
And then for a season, we recorded in the mornings, before this podcast records. So we're recording at 7:30 East or 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern. And our friend Steven joined the podcast from the West Coast, and he was like, "This is not Debate Night. It's close because we're almost on the back
still,
end."
Yeah. That's funny.
Wild times. Well, Zeke, let us know. We want to get to know you, not just where you're from. So how long have you been playing disc golf?
So I've been playing occasionally for I think 2 years. My buddy at college introduced it to me. We went and played a few times, and I was really bad, so I just thought it was dumb at first. But then once I started to get okay at it, I was like, all right, this is kind of fun. And then actually just this last May, for my birthday, my girlfriend got me my first disc. So I would say May of this year is when I started really getting into it and trying to learn about form and do all that. So 4.5 months I've been playing for.
Dude,
great.
We love it. We love it. That's I appreciate that in 4.5 months you haven't gone too crazy. I've seen the 4.5 monthers that have 24 discs in their bag. They've got the full thing loaded, and they don't know how any of them fly. And that's okay. If that's fun for you, fire away. But we appreciate that you're coming, getting some guidance early on. Okay, so if we were to take you out to a field and we are like, all right, Zeke, I want you to, they're going to put a basket X amount of feet away from you. How far do you feel like you can consistently reach on a forehand and a backhand?
Yeah, so I went out on Monday this week, or maybe Tuesday, and I just set up my bag, took some discs, and used the UDisc app, walked however many feet away, and I did pretty well up to the backhand, up to the 260-foot range. I think I parked 2, got 2 in circle 1, 1 in circle 2, so I felt pretty good about that.
Yeah.
And then once I was going for 300, it felt like I had to throw it a lot harder. So then it was a lot worse. So I would say the 260 to 275 range is where I'm pretty comfortable on backhand. And then my forehand is more inconsistent. I did the same thing, and I did pretty well up to like 160 feet. And then when it was 200 feet, I was having trouble getting it there accurately.
That's maybe the most scientific way to do that I've ever heard in 121 episodes. I really like that method, by the way.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's and I would say 4 months in, Brad, at 4 months in, did you have a 160-foot like forehand?
Nope, I didn't have a 160-foot forehand until like a year and a half ago.
Yeah. So I impressed, Zeke, impressed. So if we take you to the putting green and we said, all right, you're gonna putt for a little bit, we're gonna put you 10 putts from 15 feet, 10 putts from 25, and 10 putts from 40 feet. How many are you making at each station?
Mm-hmm. So I also went out and did this. I did it twice actually, on Tuesday and Wednesday. And on the first day from 15, I went 7 from 10. And then the next day I had a little bit of wind, so we went 6 for 10. And then from 25 feet, I think I went 4 for 10 both days. And then on the first day, from 40 feet, I actually went 2 for 10 and surprised myself.
Okay.
But I was on the phone with my girlfriend. I made 2 of my first 3. I was like, hey, your boyfriend's kind of cooking right now. And then I went 0 for 7 after that. So
Yeah.
The next day I went 0 for 10, and I was like, that makes sense.
Okay, so it averages out.
Yeah. I also like that you did 2 separate days, different conditions. So I got to ask now, what are you studying in school, Zeke?
Athletic training, like sports medicine.
All right. I would say that makes sense. Reps.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense. That's a very scientific approach to that. My next guess was going to be something in the like chemical engineering field because it was very process driven. So, okay. Well, good. Sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt, but I was just like, is this the format that we tell everybody to do, Robbie? Like, I feel like this was like I have the most accurate representation of how he plays at the moment.
Yeah. Maybe we should. I always appreciate when folks are like, that's the beauty of being 121 episodes in is that like y'all know if you're coming on, you know what questions you're going to get asked. So you can prep accordingly. So I'm here for that. And then there's other moments where like I chuckle, our dear friend Jesse, who's like, he watches a lot of content and all that. And when I had him on for my interview show on my channel, he was like, oh, that's a really good question. I never thought about that. I should have probably prepped that. I was like, don't worry, Jesse. I just literally asked that to every single person who comes on.
Right.
Ooh. So Zeke, looking at your bag, man, you have a really unique bag in that it's 11 discs. It's really thin right now. And I mean, we talked about the dream bag being 10 discs. So I feel like you're not only are you not far off of that, but I feel like of our like dream 10 disc bag, I feel like you're actually pretty close to having that 10 disc bag.
Yeah, for sure.
So really, really love what you've kind of assembled here over time. Can I ask, when you said your girlfriend bought you your first couple discs, what discs did she buy?
She bought me what every beginner's first disc should be, and that's an Innova Star Destroyer.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so that's what she got me for my birthday, and then I was hooked after that, and I think I bought myself all the rest of them.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I was like looking at it. I was like, I think if I were a betting man, I would put my bet on the Pure. I would put it on the Mako 3, or I'd put it on the Destroyer.
Yeah.
I'm here for that. That's awesome. The Star Destroyer is just such a cool name that it draws so many people in. So we're going to start with drivers because you have 2 drivers in your bag. You got a Destroyer and a Wild Honey in the, what's that, like steady plastic?
Yes, I believe so.
Um,
Yes, steady
Yeah,
plastic.
it looks like it.
so talk to us about, so you're throwing 260 feet accurately. What is the use case for these two discs for you?
So the destroyer I don't use quite as much because I still don't quite have the arm speed to get it to kind of have that pretty flight that it's supposed to have. I think just with time that'll come and with beating it in. But I will sometimes use it if it's right around that 260, 275 foot hole that bends hard left at the end, and I wouldn't mind a little ground play with it. There's like one course specifically where I'm sometimes pulling that out, especially if it's a good day and I'm throwing well.
Mm-hmm.
My honey is what I use a lot more. I just got it recently, but it feels really good in my hand. I'm throwing it really well. And like on the course I'm at, we have like a slight downhill hole where everyone goes up and around, and I can just go dead straight, and it just does a little turn, little fade, but pretty much just goes straight. I'm giving it a shot at the basket. So it's my furthest flying disc, I would say, and kind of the one I feel most comfortable with.
Okay. I love that. I love that.
Hmm.
I great answers. And I would say, I feel like you're using Destroyer like pretty accurately. Like, I don't feel
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
I was ready for the answer of like, oh yeah, I just crank on this thing on some Hyzer, and that's one of my farthest flying discs. Because I think about like, if I'm throwing a 270-foot shot and I needed to get hard left,
Mhm.
there are times that I'll step up to my version of that disc. So,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. Okay. So we drop down to fairway drivers, and you've got 3.5 fairway drivers in the bag. We talked before we started recording. We're going to count one of them sort of as more of a mid range, since that's how you kind of use it. But you've got a disc that, honestly, I'm going to have to look this up because we're 121 episodes into talking about discs, and
Mhm.
I don't know that I have ever heard of this disc before.
I haven't until today. Ironically enough, Robbie, I saw his bag when you sent it to me, and we did for our text deals here. We did two used mystery discs for the text deal this week.
Yeah.
And I was making those boxes for people. Jason and I were, and I pulled out a Trinity, and I was like, "What is this disc?" So I didn't know until this morning. So what weird timing we have here.
Yeah. Approved May 20th, 2024. So it's only a couple months old. It got approved May 20th, which means that it's like, it definitely is not. That's also really sad for it that it got
Yeah.
approved May 20th, which means it probably came
Yeah.
out like in June. It's already in the use bid for someone. So Zeke, what does the Trinity fly like for you, man? Lone Star
Yeah,
discs.
I didn't know it was that new either, but
Yeah.
kind of similar to my destroyer where it goes straight for a bit and then fades left a little bit sooner. So similarly, but less ground action. So not quite as far, not as much, quite as much to the left. Can still get a hold of it a little bit better. But yeah, just on my good days, I'm releasing just straight and flat, not really any hyzer on it. So it just carries straight and then burns left at the end.
Yeah. What plastic is it in? If there should be a sticker on the bottom that usually says the plastic type. It'll say
Uh,
like Bravo, or is it gummy, or is it really kind of stiff?
it's a little bit gummy.
Yeah, probably Bravo.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you'd struggle to find Alpha. That's that. I mean, it could
Yeah.
be. I guess
Usually has a black like ink stamp on the back with the weight and the plastic type. If it
It
didn't rub,
does. It's kind of faded out. Oh, I think it does say Bravo in like 175.
it looks like Bravo from
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sick. Dude, Bravo is my favorite plastic in all of disc golf. I'll just
Yeah.
say it. It's a hot take, I know, but Bravo feels so good, dude. If I could have Bravo like Raiders, going
Nasty.
crazy right now in my head. So straight, reliable. I love that. Is there any world where you feel like you get more distance out of the Destroyer versus the Trinity, or you get more distance out of the Trinity than the Destroyer, or is it purely like the case used for them is kind of how far left do you need to go and how much ground play do you need?
I think on a good day, I can probably get more distance out of the Destroyer, and on a bad day, I'd probably get more distance out of the Trinity if I'm not throwing it. That's good.
It's probably accurate. Yeah, that was going to be my question too, Robbie, because I love asking that for people who maybe don't throw super far as like under, let's just say under 300 feet. Like, what is the real? I would love to do my experiment, Robbie, would be, grab like a group of 50 people, 25 of them throw over 300, 25 throw under 300, and see like between a 7 speed, a 9 speed, and like, I don't know, let's just go up to a 12 speed, like what the difference in the disc, same type of flight disc, right? Just like a super straight disc, like what is the actual distance difference between all of those for someone kind of at different arm speeds? That's always like kind of my question. Because Zeke, for me, it's weird. I felt like there was a phase where my putters were going just as far as everything else, and then it seemed like I found there was a point when my mid ranges started to separate themselves from my putters, but then mids and fairways were kind of going the same distance. And now, fairways and mids are different. And I feel like my FD, I can throw just as far, or if not farther than like a 12 speed. So, I think there's probably a lot to unpack there, which we're not going to do right now, but I'm always that's my curiosity, just I guess from my own game. And I'm sure, Rob, you've seen hundreds and hundreds of people do probably that same process.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I not only same process, but like I think about, in my distance journey that I'm going through right now, like there are times where I step up and I'm like, okay, on my best day, I know this is like, absolutely, I should be throwing this disc. But like, it's why so rarely in a foundation video, when I pull a distance driver out, I already know that I hate myself before I throw that disc. So I'm like, it's going to be a worst case scenario. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw the fairway driver. So it's like the pros and cons of the fairway drivers also, though, when you juice up on them, have a tendency to have less like resistance. I don't want to say like torque resistance, because it's not a torque resistance thing. It's you just over juicing the disc. So I like the distance drivers can take a little more yam to them. But also the gap between a 7 speed to a 12 speed of the Wild Honey to the, like, even the Rhythm is pretty drastic. So one of the areas that we talked about, like possibly doing as a focus point here, was doing like a control driver in the like 9 or 10 speed slot. So I'm going to end up putting Brad on the spot here in a second. So I'm going to have you, but you're used to it. 2 episodes ago, you were me. So
I was.
It worked. And it was a great episode. If you guys haven't gone back and listened to it, I just finished it this week. Loved it. Guys did a great job. Zeke, they're trying to put me out of a job, man. So it's tough out here.
I would never do that. I would take my own job away first.
It is. It's tough out here. But so I want to hear about this River and the Rhythm and how they fly for you. And then Brad, see if you had any suggestions in that like 9 to 10 speed to kind of, after hearing kind of all of the driver side of things. So Zeke, what does the River and the Rhythm do for you?
Yeah, so the River I've just recently kind of started to throw a little bit more and enjoy. It's in the Opto Ice Orbit plastic. So me and my dad both throw this disc. It's been his favorite disc or one of his favorite discs for a while. I was having some trouble with it because one of my biggest problems with my form is 2 things. Right when I'm about to release, I either kind of stand up tall and pull it high, and or I lean back a little bit and then pull discs to the right. So then if disc has any understability, it's just gone to the right. So that's why I threw a lot more Trinity, Destroyer, like the Honey, and like Jap, those discs, because I couldn't pull them to the right. Even if I did that, they'd fight out of it. But I've started to make my form a little smoother. The slow is smooth, smooth is fast, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I'm finally getting the feel of this thing and seeing it in the air. Like, okay, that's what the 7 glide is. I don't have to throw it super hard, and it's gonna just stand up, maybe go a little to the right, and then come back left and just go pretty far. So, yeah, just far shots, a little straighter. The course I'm at right now, like every hole is either uphill or downhill. So it's hard to see it on flat ground as much, but yeah, especially downhill, throw it straight, let it go far, and then kind of fade left and down at the end.
Robbie, I don't know if you agree with this, but River is one of the few discs that I believe the glide number when it's above 5. The other one I would say I believe is the Glitch as well.
Yeah.
those are some of the very few that I believe above that 5 marker on glide.
Yeah. I think it's even crazy because they're 7s. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I'll see a 6 and I'll be like, okay, like
Yeah.
a couple 6s that I really lean into are you could not convince me otherwise that all of Jesse's discs are a 6 glide. Like I think the inner core is super glidey, the Dune is super glidey.
Yeah, definitely the Dune.
The Hex is one that I would be like, the Hex has 5 glide. Nah, bro, that's a 6 glide disc. I mean, you get
For
that thing
sure.
up and moving, and it just goes a country mile.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the river and the glitch, put some air underneath them, and they are angels. They fly so far.
That's the true.
So yeah, hearing that, Brad, knowing like a little bit of while you're, unless you have one like in mind, I want to give like a quick little, honestly, like a little quick form tip that might be leaning to why you're kind of pulling stuff hard right, like how you said you lean back some, Zeke, and then that'll cause it to yank on Annie. One of the biggest things is when your head gets so far, like when we're going to throw and we're trying to juice it, our head kind of falls forward looking for the shot and like worrying about that. And so I don't think that your head should have to stay like all the way back. Like I don't have to necessarily be looking backwards from where I'm trying to throw, but the more my head turns all the way forward, the more that I can yank over to the right because the disc just realistically hasn't come out of my hand yet. So I think that I'm throwing like a stock Hyzer or something on my initial line, but as I like turn my head and pull it, the disc is getting released so much later. My shoulders are opening up, so that could be contributing to the problem as well. Just as like food for thought. While
Yeah,
you're doing
I
that,
think you're right. I've been definitely trying to keep my head more kind of neutral and right here and not there. So
Yeah,
and that's
that
been
makes
helping
sense.
for sure.
yeah. I'm on the opposite
And
problem
then,
right now where I tried so hard for so long to keep my head back that coach is like, all right, Robbie, you are legitimately backwards. Like your head is entirely backwards during the throw. And I'm like, no, it's not, dude. I'm looking forward. And he was like, have you watched your own video? I was like, yeah, that's my bad, dude. My bad. So 9 to 10 speeds, Brad, anything that kind of jumps out to you that you're like, hey, I would consider looking at this or this?
Let's see. I think 9 or 10 speed. I love the Vulture, right? And I think it kind of, the thing about a Vulture depends on which one you get. And like, I'd even maybe recommend finding a used one that's kind of been like beat up a little bit. I think it will be like kind of a less like aggressive destroyer for you, especially if you're working on your form. It'll actually have some like really straight flight before the overstability. It might give you a little bit more, I guess, length on your throw versus a Trinity. You might like it a little bit better for that like kind of overstable slot there. I think it also has some other utility too, instead of just like that stock Hyzer shot. 9 speeds. I have a love-hate relationship with 9 speeds. I mean, I love the lift. I mean, the lift is a great disc, and I think it's great for my forehand and backhand, and I believe that's a 9 speed. 8 speed Robbie Jackalope. Of course, we can't forget Jackalope as a recommendation too. Just as you play, I think a Jackalope might be something. I don't know. I mean, you have a rither. That's a rhythm and a river together, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I didn't mean to do that, but hello, here we are.
Gyro House of Discs.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know. I think, let me ask you this question first before I say anything else about the Jackalope. Do you find your rhythm and your river like running into each other? Do you feel like sometimes you're like you don't know which one to reach for, or is it pretty clear which disc they don't overlap?
it's pretty clear. Do you want me to talk about the rhythm for a
Yeah,
minute?
I'd love to hear that
Okay.
before I say anything about the Jackalope. Yeah, but before we go on, lift would be a great, like, probably between your Wild Honey and River, if I would have to guess, like right in that
Okay.
middle ground. So
I'll
to
definitely
complete that
take
thought,
I'll definitely take a look at some of those. So yeah, my rhythm, I went and got it. I didn't even know that it was a lightweight disc until after I bought it because I just wasn't paying attention to the weight. But and I also couldn't decide if it looked super cool or super ugly.
yeah,
But either way, I knew it would stand out. So I like getting the brightly colored discs just in case. I played a lot of wooded courses and stuff.
yeah,
So this disc is insanely understable. I'm starting to figure it out again and not throw it as hard as I can. But if
Hmm.
I throw it really hard, it doesn't matter if I put it on this much hyzer. It's turning over and burning to the right,
Hmm.
which my river will not do that. So they're definitely different. And then this is also the disc that my girlfriend uses, so I'll cover up my phone name, but I crossed out my name and put her name on it
Yeah.
because she throws it more than me anyway. So this is one that she'll use. I'll give it to my buddies. I have a men's group Bible study, and after we
Hmm.
get into the Word, we'll go out and play around. And I'm the
Sweet.
only one, or me and one guy, so I'll let them use this because I think it's a good like beginner disc to kind of get some distance, even
Yeah,
if your form's not the best.
That's
especially
why I
with the
kind of
157.
Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
that's I didn't see that at first.
Mhm.
That was why I asked about the rhythm in the river. That's really hard for me to say, guys. I'm really sorry. Um, because my experience with the rhythm, and I guess if I think about it, the fission ones are the ones that kind of stand out. But like a proton rhythm or a neutron rhythm, I don't agree with the flight numbers at all, Robbie. I don't know about you. I don't feel like it's as understable as its numbers imply, or
Mm.
you don't get that turn, at least from what I've seen and what I've thrown. But yeah, when you get in that lighter weight fission, it seems, but I don't know. It's hit or miss with me sometimes, Robbie, on fission. I feel like fission, a lot of time for me, gives me like the lightweight. So I feel like I can actually get it up to speed, and I don't feel like it affects the stability most of the time for me. Is that your experience, Robbie, or do you feel the opposite?
Yeah, I think it's an expectations walking into fission. I think that a lot of people see fission and they're like, "Oh, this is going to make it the flippiest version ever,"
Hmm.
and that I would say that happens more rarely than it does consistently. Like if you throw a fission hex, I think people are like, "Oh yeah, I got a fission hex and it was super flippy out the gate." Like,
Hmm.
was it 130 grams? Because
Right.
that might be the only way. And then I think some people have fission hexes that they're like, "Oh, this is my super flippy fission hex," and it's like it's actually not that flippy. You throw it on Hyzer every single
Right.
time you throw it, and like you're convincing yourself that you're doing this. Whereas the time lapses, on the other hand, fission time lapses were legitimately super flippy
Yeah.
out of the box, no matter what weight they were. So yeah, I think fission's a really cool plastic. It to me, my hot take is I think fission is the most inconsistent plastic that MVP makes
Yeah.
by a mile.
I'd probably agree with that. I'd probably agree with that. I don't know if that's super hot take, even Robbie. I think that's probably Shay Stevens. I don't know if he listens to this podcast, but let us know what you think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's interesting. So, do you find the rhythm is like just you don't reach for it a lot? Like, are there shots you throw with it, or are you just like, this is really just my loner disc to people that don't really play that much?
I don't use it a lot. I think sometimes back in Spokane, I'll use it a little more because I'm in a wooded course where there's some more that kind of go to the right, so I need some of that flippiness.
Uh huh.
In Lewiston, there's like two courses. One of
Hmm.
them is $14 for parking, so I just
Right.
play the
Oof.
free one, and it's just in a dog park where my football team ironically practices, which is not a good practice field. But anyways, uh, so it's all just open. I don't really need this to be super flippy and kind of work their way through anything, so I don't throw it a lot. The other one that I'm thinking about, I have a leopard that I might replace the rhythm with. I had a leopard and it was the first disc that I was throwing like really well and had some nice shots, able to get that S curve out of it. And then I lost it, and then I replaced it with this one that's also a super ugly disc. But I kind of haven't been using it quite as much as I was back then, but I'm starting to maybe throw it a little more. And so this could take the place of my rhythm. We'll
Hmm.
see what happens.
Yeah.
But
I
neither of them are being reached for a lot.
yeah, I think I one disc I would look at is the Sapphire.
Hmm.
Um,
Great disc.
we haven't talked about the Sapphire probably since one of our first distance driver recommendations, like way
Yeah.
back when. It's part of Latitude 64's easy to use line. So if you like the feel of your rhythm, it's not going to be a far cry from that. Same company. Um, it's light. It's the easy to use line are all lightweight. That's kind of their whole vibe. They did like a small run of max weight diamonds and max weight sapphires, so they do exist out there.
Hmm.
But they were like trilogy challenge specific discs, so they're really tough to hunt down. But what I think could be a nice balance is you have the speed of the Sapphire, which is a 10 speed, so it's a little faster, which
Hmm.
means that the rim's also larger and things like that, so it's a little harder to control, but it is lighter weight and it's understable. So it sounds like it could be this like nice middle ground for you of, I think the Fission Rhythm could be the right disc. I think switching to Leopard is a good idea, but that 157 part of the rhythm is what's really killing it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm with you, Brad. Like I see the rhythm numbers. They remind me very much of a Stalker, or not Stalker, a Sting. When I threw my Sting and my rhythm side by side, I was like, oh, okay, these are pretty similar. It just the difference was when you get a hold of the rhythm, it's that gyro effect. Anytime I throw a gyro disc that's a fairway or faster, if you get a bad rip on it, it just betrays you because that gyro effect just says, no, what if we fought?
Yeah.
So, okay, so I want to pivot down to, we're going to jump over mids for a brief second, pivot down to putters real fast. You got the Pixel that you're putting with. Fantastic choice. I think the Pixel probably has to be in the running for like, because did the Pixels come out this year or last year? I feel like they came out this year, but that could be
It's
like
this
way
year.
wrong. Yeah.
Early this year, I think.
Yeah, because Northeast Disc Golf Expo, they like had custom pixels as a like, hey, get them before other people can.
Yeah.
So the glitch. Talk to me about the glitch. What are you using the glitch for?
The glitch, that lid disc. So I've seen your kind of video on lid discs where you're teaching the people how to do it or whatever. So I've been working on that shot, kind of just 100 feet, 80 to 100 feet, 125 feet away from the basket. Just give it a little bit. Don't have to throw it super hard and let it kind of float towards the basket. Give it a shot of going in without dropping it all. So that's mostly what I use it for. There's like one really short hole where I'll drive with it because I know it won't outshoot the basket. My other stuff will. But yeah, just kind of those little approach shots with touch.
Are
That's
you getting any of them to fall in?
Not yet, but we'll get there.
Okay.
I think that's such an underrated skill, just to throw that out there, Robbie. Like, that is noticeably something I've been trying to work on that I just realized I do not have, and I never put any time into. But the confidence of having looks like a little floaty backhand about 100 feet. So that great use of the glitch, Zeke. That's definitely the right. And I'll say about the Pixel, I do believe the glide on the Pixel as well. Even a 4 for a putter, that thing has some glide.
Yeah. Zeke, I'll tell you, it's that shot, working on it, sticking to it, committing to it. It's one of those, any people you play with that get good, see you throw that shot, it brings terror to them so often because you're like, okay, Zeke's out of position. Awesome. We're going to get one on him. And then they watch you step up and you have that in your hand and they're like, oh, okay. Well, we know that he's either throwing it in or he's going to be next to the basket. Like, we're not getting more than a stroke on him here. So it legitimately puts so much more pressure on the people you're playing with because they're like, I have to make my putt or else like I don't get a stroke back on him. That's crazy. So really, really fun. I like that people are leaning into that. So then the Pure, what does it fly like for you?
So I heard you guys recommend the Pure, that it was kind of one of those really good beginner discs, straight flying, and I would say that I agree with that. It flies pretty straight. If I do my little lean back, it'll be a little understable, but that's more my form than that. So yeah, just for those shorter either approach or shorter holes, just nice and straight, point and shoot, throw it right at the basket and see what happens.
Okay. So how far, do you have an idea on how far you throw your Pure specifically?
Probably 150, 175 maybe, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Not 100% sure.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I was just trying to think from the standpoint of like, if you walk up to a hole and it is blank feet, you're like, oh, it's a pure shot. Are there any holes that like you feel like that exist for you?
None that I play
Okay.
that I can think of.
Yeah. Hey.
There was that one hole that I now throw the glitch on that I was throwing the Pure on.
Okay.
But I was out driving the basket with the Pure. So.
Hey, that's fair.
There you go.
I think that is such a satisfying feeling when you get to the point where you're like, you're stepping up to holes and you're like, this is a pure shot. Like this, not even pure in because I'm about to buttery smooth like pure this fairway, but also I'm throwing a pure. Okay. Zone. You have a zone in your bag.
Mm-hmm.
but it's not the zone people would think. For someone to have one zone in their bag, this is, if you gave me 10 guesses, this would not be the plastic I would land on.
Yeah.
So how'd you end up with a base plastic zone in your bag?
I just saw it at the kind of my local shop in Spokane, and I was like, I was actually going to look for a pig, Robbie, because I watch all your videos, but he was out of pigs, and I was like, I guess I'll try a zone. I guess that
Welcome
would
to
be
the
okay.
club. Welcome
Yeah, but the
to
zone,
the
it
dark
did fly
side.
nice, and it was super overstable, but then now it's got a bunch of chunks and stuff out of it, so it doesn't fly super overstable. So I'm probably going to have to replace it soon. I
Mm-hmm.
actually met a guy here who saw me throwing it, and he said he has a zone in more premium plastic that is less beat up that he'd give me.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting on maybe getting that at some point. We'll see. But
Yeah.
yeah, so this one now, since it's not super overstable, it actually is still really nice because I can kind of like the pure, but I think it goes even straighter than my pure right now and still has that just little bit of fade at the end, but just throw it right at the basket. I have one shot specifically at the course here
Mm-hmm.
where I think I missed it once in the practice round, but when I was going through, like, I birdied that hole like 3 or 4 times in a row because I just throw this right at the basket and it's got a chance sometimes to
Mm-hmm.
go in or it's just sitting right by the basket. So it's pretty fun.
That's awesome. There's something beautiful about a very straight zone, though. So don't get rid of that one.
No, I'll
Once you
hold on
grow
to
into it, you're gonna love that zone, and you put all
Yeah.
the love into it. So,
That's the makings
yeah,
of Precious Child.
yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Just keep cycling those puppies, and then you'll love that after a while. And I saw you throw. You're a forehand backhand zone guy. I just think I'm maybe considering just getting over myself and starting to throw my zone on backhand also. So I think I'm done with that. Done with that part of my life. But I'm glad to see that it's going well for you. Do you find yourself wishing you had a more overstable approach disc for like approach forehands, or do you really throw a lot of approach forehands?
Yeah, depending on where I'm at, I sometimes will. My forehand is definitely not where I feel the most comfortable and where
Mm-hmm.
I definitely need some work. But if I'm in a weird spot behind a tree where I kind of have to step out to the right,
Mm-hmm.
or if there's more obstacles, to the right and I can kind of left and hook around, then I'll
Yeah.
kind of throw that forehand. I think
Mm-hmm.
it'll be nice. I'll either get that zone from that guy or go get a zone myself or maybe try a different disc because trying new discs is fun.
Yeah. I
But
have
yeah,
I have
I'm
one
more
behind me. I
overstable.
want to send you with your other discs, so you don't have to worry
Oh,
about it.
really?
Yeah,
Oh, thank
I'll
you. I
pull it off of my
appreciate that.
shelf right here. I've got like
This man's
I've
got
got
zones.
I've got a
Yeah.
stockpile of these like old Get Freakies, and I will send this particular one. It's bright, so you won't lose it. So I'll send it out with your disc as well, just off of my shelf. That way you don't have to worry about it. Because I really think where I started getting a forehand and made me stop being afraid of my forehand was taking a zone, forcing myself to throw like chippy forehand up shots, really finding like because you don't have to kill it if you're like 100, 125 feet out. You got to go left and you got to get back right. There's 100 shots you're going to throw like that. And it just gave me confidence when you start landing those and getting like the feel of like your distance on them and like how wide do you need to hang these. I think there's just like, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, Robbie, that's like the beginnings of developing a good forehand, at least in my opinion. If anyone's like, hey, I don't have one, how should I get one? That's like the advice I give them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree. That's when I do forehand lessons with folks. One of the biggest things that we work on is just pure Hyzers, like over and over again, pure Hyzers, because if you can get used to that motion and firing, because for so many people, they're coming like over the top and they're forcing them down. So if I can get that arm kind of swooping with it, it gets the wrist firing as well. Like it just does a lot for them. But the other reason that I do it is so that if you can reliably throw that 100-foot Hyzer, like that is instantly you have a new tool to approach when you're
Right.
on the course. So people are like, this is so goofy. Why am I just throwing all these Hyzers? And it's like, I promise you, you're going to be on the course within this week and be like, oh, it's just right there. And then you're under the
Yeah.
basket, like easy peasy.
Right.
So I completely agree. So last two discs in the bag, you have the Cax and the Mako 3. So we talked about that. We hinted at the Cax and we said, hey, it flies more like a mid-range for you. So kind of talk to us about that because Castoplast calls it a 6-speed. but for lots of people, I would say they kind of move it into more of the mid-range world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a mid range when I bought it. I was going for a overstable mid range, and I mean
Hmm.
that's what it is. It's another one that I can just throw straight, let it kind of fade out somewhere between, or yeah, somewhere between my zone when it was overstable and my Trinity. And I'm still kind of getting the hang of that one. It's a newer disc, but I started throwing it again the other day.
Hmm.
And when I was out doing that kind of practice, throwing 5 discs at my bag, it was one that I was actually marking or getting like within circle one pretty consistently. So I was like, okay, maybe I need to throw this a little more than I do.
Hmm.
Would you say flies a notably shorter distance than your Trinity, or is it kind of like the Trinity and Destroyer, where like on your best day the Trinity goes farther, worst day the Cax is probably equidistant to it?
I think they're probably pretty close, and they're all not like super different, and it just depends. But I might have to go out there and test that out a
Hmm.
little. I just got done with my football season, so now I have more time to go do or practice and kind of field work,
Right.
get back into it.
Come on.
Yeah. I think there's some beauty on like that O2 like kind of slot in a lot of different areas, but I think mid ranges specifically, because I feel like there's something about a mid range. I love throwing a mid range really hard, and like just knowing that there's like going to have some torque resistance and it's going to come back and you're not going to roll it over is like kind of gives you, like, at least for me, gives me some confidence on like, I love throwing my Quake, and I think some of the reason I get so much distance on my Quake is that like I'm just not afraid to just like, I mean, I don't feel like I have to like destroy my arm to throw it right, but I do feel like I can hit it hard, and it makes me not super worry about like, oh, did I give it a little too much like flat or Annie, or did I like throw it a little too hard? Is it going to flip on me? Like, I'm not worried about any of that other noise in my mind. I'm just worried about like, if I hit this hard and straight, it's going to go really far, but I'm going to get that stability at the end that I need. So I think with your Cax, if you keep throwing it against your Trinity, you'll probably, I would bet money that you're going to rely on your Cax more than your Trinity at some point, just because it's going to feel better for you, and you're probably going to get more distance out of it.
Yeah, I could see that.
So then jumping over to the Mako 3 as sort of the last disc, and this is going to really, I think, have a large influence on sort of the recommendation conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So Brad, feel free to ask any questions you want
Yeah.
alongside it. But how does the just stock question? How's the Mako 3 fly for you?
It's awesome. It was one of the first discs I got after the Destroyer. I think I went out and got a DX AVR and the Star Mako 3 from Dick's Sporting Goods in Spokane. And I was, yeah. And so I still didn't know anything about disc golf. I just knew I wanted a mid range and a putter. And then I just learned what the flight numbers were. And I was like, ooh, it's a 0-0. That means it just goes straight. And
Mm-hmm.
then the more I've worked with it, I'm like, okay, when I throw it right, it does just go straight. And I spent like maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks where I was like, okay, I'm just going to throw mid ranges and putters. And that was after I lost my Leopard and before I got my Cax. So my Mako 3 was my only mid range. So I was driving with it on every hole and just got a
Mm-hmm.
really good feel for it. And then I let my buddies borrow it. I think it is a great disc for beginners, even though it's a little tricky to throw, but just to kind of work on that, because once you start throwing it right, it's a disc that's you're gonna see it respond differently and respond well once you're throwing it better, I think. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I've been letting my buddies use it, and then the other day I finally went out by myself and got to use it again, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is why I like that disc. It goes straight, and then even if I throw it a little high, it kind of just drops, doesn't fade super hard to the left, so I can just throw it right at the basket, see how my accuracy is, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I think I don't think I have a lot of questions, Robbie. I mean, it seems like it's a pretty input equals output type of disc, which is definitely good. I mean, there's definitely struggles that come in with that kind of disc because, it doesn't leave a lot of room for error sometimes if you're trying to do other stuff with it. But I think, yeah, just pretty common beat in Mako 3, sounds like to me. So yeah, no, I'm ready to jump into the discs today, Robbie.
Yeah, let's do it. What'd you throw?
All right. So I threw an MVP Detour and I threw a Clash Cherry. So those are the two discs I threw today. Um, I let's talk about hand feel, and then Robbie, I'll let you ask me questions because I don't want to skew this. I want to stay focused on this discussion because I could go on a rant probably, and we don't want to do that today. Hand feel, it's it's so funny. Like what I do like hand feel wise, I love the hex, and the detour and hex do not feel that much different in my opinion. You can tell it's a little more understable just by the actual rim, but like depth wise has a pretty flat top. It does have that like hex feel. It feels like it can go really far. So I do like that. And I know that sounds maybe weird. I don't know how to describe that, but it feels like that, like, I don't know. It's like aerodynamic. It can just like cut through the air. It's not like a big bulky mid range. Like I feel like the Mako 3, that's how I feel. It's really deep. It feels bulky to me. Speaking of thick boys, here's a cherry. Cherry is definitely a little thicker, does feel like a mid range, but is very comfortable. The steady plastic, which you're already familiar with. This one I'd argue is a little more gummy. This is one, actually, this particular one Clash sent me a while back before the cherry even came out. It feels really good in the hand. It feels like you can really get a grip on it. The plastic is nice and grippy. I will say, as I was throwing, I've never really had this issue with MVP before, but this particular detour got a little slick on me with a little bit of moisture. The cherry did not, so that's just worth noting. But yeah, you can probably tell the difference in like depth from you visual watchers. I think I have that one tilted a little bit more, but cherry is definitely deeper, so your fingers get you can put them up higher up in the rim as well. So hand feel, I mean, if I'm going on like what feels better plastic wise, cherry wins. If I say what feels better typically with what I like a, for anything I'm trying like mid range, I like a shallower, like flat kind of feel. So I think like the detour wins on that account for like what I like to throw, but comfortability, plastic feels the cherry. So a little tie maybe there.
Yeah, that's fascinating because when it comes to like just gyro in general, Brad, do you bag a lot of neutron plastic? Like I feel like you don't have any neutron envies. I feel like it's all like
No, I don't typically like neutron.
okay.
I have a neutron hex I keep in there, but it's more of like if I like lose my fission hex, I'm just going to throw that one. But
Yeah.
it's really no more than that. I don't like particularly love. Yeah, I like either like electron firm. I have that proton plasma envy, the rebirth one, and I wouldn't typically pick that. You know what I mean? And then yeah, I don't really have any neutron that I throw. I like Eclipse more.
Yeah. So you take them out to the field and you're like, all right, we know that there is a how do they fly on like some, because for you stock is like flat to little baby Hyzer. So how do they fly for you on your stock releases?
Yeah, they were pretty fun. I love the slot in my bag, and it's interesting because I'm starting to throw different. Like I'm starting to be like, okay, and I don't know, maybe it's like that bicep tear thing that I had, but I'll throw a few like 50% powers before I even think about throwing any harder than that. And I kind of tripped myself out a little bit because I was throwing them like that easy, and like the cherry just kind of went straight, and the detour like flipped a little and then just went straight. And I'm like, are these a little bit straighter than I thought that they were? So I threw them like kind of lighter again, and they would just kind of like barely flip and just go straight. They wouldn't really flip hard or like be noticeably understable. Like an uplink, if I throw an uplink at 50% power, it's going to turn still. So obviously it's a little more understable, but they kind of did that on my stock release. And when I like powered up on them, then I was like, oh, there's the understability. There's the turn that I'm looking for. So on my like, let's just say I'd probably throw this on like 75, 80% power, either one of these discs. And on a little baby Hyzer, they'll flip up really like quickly. So like I can visually see them. They come out of my hand, they flip up flat. And then it's like, I don't know, it takes them a few rotations to like start turning, which I like, which is fun. Cherry definitely was more of like a gentle turn and maybe came back a little at the end, like very, very true to its flight numbers for me, like a -2-1. Detour, this is my problem with the detour. I can't like, I feel like the understability is really inconsistent for me. And I'm not saying it's the disc's problem. I'm saying it's my problem. Like I can hit that thing hard and like with a little hyzer and it'll flip up and then just start turning immediately. Or if I feel like if I put it on the wrong angle, it'll turn too much, or like it'll stay straight, which is, Robbie said this comment to me before, but the detour is like kind of what people want a hex to be, is like flip up very straight, maybe a little bit of turn. So yeah, I think the detour is just like a little bit finicky with me. Like I can't quite, the cherry I was throwing on like that flip up, turn, ride to the right every time, and like putting it on power. I even tried like some Annie shots, like sky Annies, Robbie. And cherry like took that line really well, even nose up, but I did see that little bit of fade with like a nose up like Annie line. The detour like stalled out on me like twice, and then burn over on me twice. It's just like it's like very particular on what angle, and I do feel like I have to throw the detour hard to get the turn, whereas I can throw more of like a stock shot to get the cherry to like gently turn, if that makes sense. That maybe sounded like all over the place, but I basically both of these discs are kind of, if they were going in my bag, they would fight with my origin. I feel like, Robbie, I feel like the cherry is very origin like. I would say maybe even a little bit more beat in, like a beat in origin, like off the shelf, like has like that gentle turn that you like out of an origin. Whereas a detour, I don't know. It's like it should live between like my fission hex and my uplink, right? Should fit right in the middle. And like I feel like depending on, there's not a lot of room for error. Like if I throw it a little incorrectly, I feel like it's an uplink. If I throw it a little incorrectly the other way, I feel like it's a fission hex. So that's where I just feel like, and again, it might be a me problem, but that's where I'm kind of having the issue. I will say the detour goes very far. Like for me, I can throw it really, really far. But the cherry was good too. Like the cherry definitely was shorter consistently than the detour, but the cherry also, like, I would say, let me see, what did I measure that one? I think 250. It was like pretty average for the cherry, and the detour I could pump out to 300 for sure.
Yeah. The I think I stand by the statement of, I think the detour flies like everyone thinks their hexes should fly. So like it's not so, like when you're saying, oh, it's really hard because if I throw it this way, it's like it's basically a fission hex.
True.
I would agree. I think that is I think that is exactly the perk of this disc, except for instead of like, oh, when I throw my fission hex like amazingly and it gets this turn out of it and things like that, that's where I think the detour does this, because your fission hex has been in your bag versus the detour is riding off the shelf like, here's where it's at. So I think it to me, it kind of depends on like sort of where you want your starting place to be with the disc.
Right.
Because if you want to start on the somewhat flippier side, it sounds like the cherry. But if you want to start on like the more neutral, like not as flippy side, the detour could really shine. Obviously, it's a gyro disc, so that moving point's not going to, it's going to happen a lot faster with the cherry than it will with the detour.
Yeah.
So I did give a little preference in terms of, or like preface, not preference, a little preface before throwing these. Normally I don't give Brad a lot of context for like how he's throwing the discs. I tried to, Zeke, let him go in blind. But thankfully you've used disc RPM. So I had show notes and like throw notes on almost all of the discs. So I was trying to read into them and I was like, all right, so when Zeke misses, I was assuming the head was turning, so there was a little bit of pull to the Hyzer. And even in you and I's conversation, Zeke, you had mentioned that like understable stuff can be a little unreliable at times, just because there's that note of turning it over. So, Brad, did you let that have any influence while you were out on the field, like trying to test these a little bit?
Yeah, I threw some Annie shots as well. I was honestly kind of afraid to throw with a lot of Annie with both of these discs. Just I didn't want to like, I don't know. I feel like both of these discs, if you throw them on a lot of Annie, they're just going to turn and maybe even burn depending on how much Annie you give them. However, that's why I was trying to throw this like Annie sky shots, because I want to see, well, how do they react because I think, that pull through head thing is going to be a nose up Annie sort of, unless I'm incorrect, Robbie. That's why I was throwing that shot particularly. I don't know. It's hard for me with that, just knowing the Anheuser's the miss, because like I want to recommend the cherry. Like cherry is what I think I want to recommend for you, Zeke, because how much you like the Mako 3. I feel like that deeper, more like mid-rangey feeling type of disc might be comfortable for you, and kind of like add on that next layer of like, oh, well, maybe I can like practice Hyzer flip with that, and like I can let it turn, or maybe I need a left to right moving shot, and maybe the Mako's not going to do it for me, or the Mako's a little like finicky, and I know that the cherry is just going to do this with X amount of power. But I think the Detour and its gyro nature will be probably more friendly to you on an air nose up, a little bit of Annie, but knowing that you're throwing like 260, like it might be what you want it to be. So I don't know. I'm having a little trouble in this, Robbie, because I did throw it on those angles, but I don't know that like I had like a conclusive, like, okay, this is the right one. This is the one for that type of release. So I'm going to kind of lean to your expertise, Robbie, on this one.
Yeah. So I've got a thought here, and my internal debate is I want to see, like, Zeke, if you have one that you might lean towards a preference before I kind of give the thought process. But I'll let you kind of decide both ways. Would you like to know kind of my thought on it first, or would you like to give sort of your one of these sounds more interesting than the other vibe? What are your thoughts?
Let's hear your thoughts on it first.
Okay. So for me, I think I'd lean the cherry for two reasons. One, I think that I agree that the Detour flies like a seasoned. I agree with myself. That sounds super vain. The Detour flies like a hex, like a seasoned hex, which is fine. Like that's a great shot. The Mako 3, I feel like also flies like a seasoned hex in terms of that point and shoot capability. So I think the Mako 3 has a tendency, just if both thrown like not crushed, I think the Mako 3 and the Detour could, in theory, not be too far off of one another, like in terms of flight. So I like the extra understability of the cherry. But really where I think the cherry like pushes it is when I think about trying to expand your game. If you want a little extra turn, you can think about trying to mess around with the Mako on some Anheuser and things like that. But if you put the cherry in your bag and you're thinking about moving the rhythm out to put in the leopard, suddenly you're adding two discs to your bag that both want to be thrown on Hyzer. So you can learn the Hyzer flip.
Yeah.
But they should also learn it at like different distances and different power controls and things like that. So I like that you're putting the leopard in your bag and we're kind of sending you a shorter range version of this so that you don't have to, like, I threw the leopard once. I'm not going to walk all the way to go pick it up, 260 feet away from me. And then I got to throw it back. Like here you could have the cherry and the other one. But I do like what Brad's saying I think that Detour is going to go so far for you. So it's just kind of do you want the tool? In my mind, the decision would be, do you want the tool to possibly open up more shots in your game? Or do you want something that I feel that might give you more tomorrow?
Yeah, that's pretty tough. I was thinking, so because I could throw my Mako 3, like it was one of the discs that I was throwing well in that 250, 260 foot range. So if the berry's going that far, then it seems like they could be pretty similar. But I also really like clash discs. Like I got the honey, and I've been kind of interested in those. And with just a little bit of understability, I think it could be good. But the distance also sounds nice. I don't know. I'm pretty torn on it as well.
So it all comes back to you. You now have all the extra thoughts, Brad, on both sides. What do you think? Does that help influence or help with your decision at all?
It's got to be the Detour. It's going to be better for you. I think I have some like vendetta against it, but it's going to be the disc that helps you the most. It's going to give you the disc that gives you the most shots, and I think it's going to be the disc that unlocks something for you. You can still Hyzer flip it pretty easily. You can learn that, but it's also going to be forgiving on some anhyzer if you like error to that. It's going to give you like that sky shot, like left to right, that you can work on. I just think it's going to be more utility for you.
Okay. Perfect.
So I will send you
the detour also, I will say, and I didn't want to influence too hard on this. The detour also is pretty nice because you can hit a detour hard. Like you the cherry, if you mush a cherry is one of my favorite clash discs, if not my favorite clash disc of all of them. And I do want to note, Zeke, that we're saying cherry, not berry, which is super confusing because they both exist.
And very close.
And they're both mid ranges.
Yeah.
And they are not far off from each other. So it's like they literally had the berry and they were like, what if we just made this like a little flippier?
Yeah.
A cherry, perfect. So to me, for most people, if they were building a bag, I would put a cherry or a Mako 3 in their bag like pretty fast. If you were newer to the game, cherries just haven't been available for like so long in stock plastic. So that's why most people have like slept on it or not hearing about it. But I like that idea because if you're like really trying to yam on something, you probably will be able to throw your Detour and your Leopard similar power levels and watch them get cool flights. So I think that's a great choice, Brad. Here for it. And Zeke, would you be willing to come back on and let us know how your Hyzer flip journey and the Detour are flying for you?
Of course, yeah, that'd be awesome. I also have a specific request, a little bit of an odd request, if you don't mind.
Well, let's do it.
I've done this app before.
Yeah.
So, Robbie, you might not see the disc before it's sent out, so if you can't, it's okay. Brad, I thought it'd be cool if I had a disc signed by someone from Foundation Disc Golf. So would you be willing to sign my disc? And Robbie, if you do see it, then you as well. But I know you might not sign the disc before you send it over. I'll still throw it.
Yeah. If you don't mind waiting a minute, Robbie and I are going to be together next week, so I can get us both to sign it.
Yeah, I can sign it next Thursday. Easy peasy. Yeah.
Okay, we can do that. No problem. Perfect. I'll make a note. No problem at all. Not a weird request. I'm glad you specified because I was going to run over and have like Evan sign it or just literally someone from Foundation. So yeah. So
hey, Christian, can you put down your sea otter and go ahead and sign this?
Oh, he's on the Juju now, man. It's a thing. So if he's watching that, but yeah, no. Hey, appreciate you, Zeke, and we'll get this out to you next week after we hang out at USDGC.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Another one. I'll go ahead and brag on Zeke. He said that he didn't get to tell two of his cool Mako stories. So surprise to him. We'll tell him real fast here.
Yep.
He was like that Mako 3 or his two longest throw-ins. He's throwing one in 180 feet on a backhand, and then another long throw-in with a tomahawk.
Yeah,
overhand into the basket. Let's go.
Yeah. So shout out Mako 3. Shout out tomahawks. Shout out what's new in the warehouse is what I'm shouting out.
Let's shout it out, dude. What's new in that warehouse?
All right, so we finally got that MVP restock that's been back ordered for a minute. So I have Fission Hexes, Neutron Hexes, Eclipse Hexes, Trails, Envies, Proxies, Glitches, Uplinks. Uplinks are back in stock. Get them quickly. There's not that many. And then time lapses, both Fission and Neutron time lapses as well. So we have those going up. We have some Innova Halloween discs, including the Color Glow Champion Gorgon, which just has my name all over it right now. So that, and then there's like the pumpkin AVRs. They have DX Glow rocks as well that look pretty sick. If you're into that sort of thing. They also have, I don't know, I'm forgetting something, but we have some other Innova. They have Halo 40th anniversary AVRs and Halo Nexus XDs for 40th anniversary as well. So those are coming out. We have some Stokely discs going up. So we have the Cardinal, the Juju, and let's see, the Ren, which is a putter. And then I think the Owl, I have to look up the release date. I don't know at this exact moment, but I think the Owl comes out as well. You heard us mention the Juju a few minutes ago. It's like a almost lid style putter, but it has like thumb holes all the way around to put your thumb in. So Christian loves it. I don't know. It feels weird to me. well, only way to know is like pick one up at foundationdisc.com. We do have foundation care. So if you get it and you're like, this thing sucks, then you can send it back, exchange it out for something. Or if you like it, you're like, hey, this was a good risk-free kind of snag for me. I will say the Ren feels really good for a putter, and the Owl feels really cool too. And I mean, we have a very big Owl fan on this podcast, so just as the animal. But
I'll tell you, Brad, the Juju, my oldest brother, the one that got both brothers into disc golf, he putted with the Juju until he found the Wizard. Wow. That was his thing. And not just like standard ones, like actually the super gummy ones.
Yeah. Wow.
Gross.
That's crazy, man. So I think that's really, what am I forgetting? Oh, we did have the PX1 release this week from Discmania and some special edition Origins. So make sure you check those out as well. Again, Recently Restock is always your best friend on foundationdisc.com. Until then, make sure you pick something up here at the store locally. Obviously, Robbie, your lessons have been going well. Make sure you check out a virtual lesson from Robbie if you'd like to see that.
October's wide open.
Yep, exactly. And we're going to be heading up USGGC next week. Make sure you all, if you're in the area, come support that. They've put a lot of effort into getting that course ready, and just a fun place for people to go and kind of get out of, whatever's happened in their life. Maybe get on there and enjoy themselves for a few days. We'll be down there. Come say hi. We'll have some in the bag stuff, new Robbie C stuff there. Spoiler. And but until then, if it's good,
keep it in the bag. We'll see you
next week.